You know, he's going to have to make every single tough shot the rest of the series, and I'm not going to turn and look otherwise because I respect him as a motherfucking player. He's a great man, great person, great human being, known him for a while. But at the end of the day, this team, we have a real decision to make. And that decision is going to be, are we going to come back and really set the tone the rest of this year and really make a statement? Or are we going to come out and lay down? And I don't think this team is built for laying down.
Oh, boy. Turn that up a little, Stiz. Celtics need a little voodoo down there when they go down to Miami. Going A1A, find themselves a nice girl. Put some potion together, give it Jimmy Butler or take a potion, make someone bigger on the Celtics. As Grant Williams talking about the, quote, poking the bear incident. Oh, yeah, okay, the team's not going to lay down. All right, you can turn them downstairs. KJWEEI, 617-779-7937. Text line 37937. Look. The problem is, who else is going to defend Jimmy Butler in these scenarios? Why is Tatum not the one that's raising that hand? Because if you're not getting off shots, can you get off some defense? Even when they're caught up in switches, it doesn't seem like Tatum is on the wrong side of a switch. It's not like, hey, Butler is trying to switch his defender off of him and he's trying to get off of Tatum. It's like Tatum's not even in the play. This is the other thing that superstars do. They defend the other team's best players if it's comparable, right? I wouldn't ask Elijah Wan to suddenly come out and defend, Butler. But if you've got a sizable tweener, long-armed wing guy who could probably defend Butler, maybe you put him on him because Butler's screaming too small because he can easily see over Grant Williams when he's shooting the basket. Where's the defense? Where's the superstar to step up in the defensive portion? When you know that it's coming. That's when you know it's coming. And there's nothing you can do. That's even worse. And this is how bad it was for the Celtics in the fourth quarter. They missed 7 threes and only made 6 total shots. Let me say that again. They missed 7 threes and only made 6 total shots in the fourth quarter. If that's going on, and the game is still in the balance, because the game was still in the balance with 3.5 minutes left in the game, don't put it on Grant Williams. Now, if it was someone you needed to get into Adebayo's body, because, where was Rob Williams at the time? That's the other thing. It's almost like, okay, I'm trying to put my finger on it. And what am I seeing? I'm seeing a lot of indecision. I'm seeing a lot of kind of like what's going on right now. And this is what I said going into this series. It'd be embarrassing if Joe Mazzulla gets circles run around him by Eric Spoelstra with a completely less talented team. And this is what's happened in the first 2 games. Am I wrong? Right? Game 1, you wait until 3. Jason Tatum's out setting screens with 4.5 minutes left in the game. No. Put that finger up. 1-4, spread out. I'm taking it, and come get me. Look, I understand the narrative if you're a superstar like Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, who's an ascending one, let's call it what it is. You have to choose multiple moments. It's not going to just be one. There are going to be multiple moments that you prove to the world, more so your fan base, but to the world, that you're built for this. Last night's the game. You should have stepped over and defended Jimmy Butler for several possessions. If he beats you, then hey, Jimmy Butler beat the Celtics' best player to get those buckets. That did not happen, and you knew home state and home court advantages on the line. That's what superstars do. 2018 Cavs. Who's that? LeBron. You don't think LeBron? You remember, right? The Heat, Dwayne Wade. How do you think he's become a Hall of Famer? Doing stuff like this. The Bulls. Does that? Do you need it? If you're trying to get to that level, Jordan would take on the best guard defender, shut down that middle guy, the wing guy. I'm just I'm just trying to figure out, like, what is the motivator at this point? Obviously, being down 0-2 should be a great motivator. But I'm not going to put it on Grant Williams, because at least Grant Williams brought something in that game that you did not see going on, which is somewhat of a care. A care. I mean, was there not a request last week? Hey, we need the fans in it. You know, you guys were kind of low energy last time. Well, was the energy met? Has it been met for these first two games? The answer is yes. From the fans. But now here we are on your way to Miami. You're twice as behind. So I have to kind of readjust my compass and start pointing it back again to Joe Mazzulla. Do you have command of this team? Do you want to say what you want to say? Because sometimes we're sitting there like, hey, you have timeouts. Why are you not calling a timeout? You're the coach. Not despite what these guys may have said on your behalf for you to become the coach. You don't have to be beholden to them forever. And that's what it feels like. It's almost kind of like, hey, the players are going to do their thing, and Joe's got to figure out how it's going to work out for them. Versus Joe drawing up what's going to happen, and the players make their adjustments there on the court. And if Spoelstra's really coaching up against players out there who are trying to kind of run the thing again, then it's going to be a sweep. But they got the coaches back. Here's Jason Tatum.
I would venture to say I'd probably say the same thing right now. We got his back, he got ours. Joe ain't missed no shots tonight. He ain't had no turnovers. I missed shots. I had
Joe
turnovers.
ain't called no timeouts.
So, anytime we lose, I'm going to look at what I could have done better in order for us to, change the outcome.
This is a question I would ask if I'm part of the pool of reporters, especially if this happens again in Game 3 against Miami tomorrow. Jason, at any time did you go to Joe Mazzulla and say, let me guard Jimmy Butler if Jimmy Butler is continuing to be Jimmy Butler? Right? Because if he goes on for a third game, then guess what it tells you? Nobody's learned from last year's test. Last year's test. I'm just baffled because, look, at the end of last year, you were saying, okay, this Celtics team can return maybe some slight tweaks in the backcourt, a guard that can handle some things that could potentially defend as well, because that's what you felt like the problem was. But also, that was in the mention was additional size. Robert Williams' minutes have greatly been reduced. Why? Why is Robert Williams not in there as a defensive presence towards the end of the game? I get that he's still coming off of a knee procedure, but if that's the case, that's got to be expressed somehow. Or if that's going to be the case through the season since he's been back, then maybe you get a better quality person at the trade deadline that, I don't know, plays. Mike Muscala has... Stiz, when's the last time you've seen Mike Muscala? Thank you.
I don't know.
Thank you. With that, you know what that is? That's a long time and going across different time zones. Plus 18 hours. And yet that was the only move at the trade deadline. So does not some of this kind of creep higher than Joe Mazzulla? Is this something that, okay, the players felt like they were good and you listened to them when they knew? I mean, my goodness. The bench is small. The bench players for the Celtics were Grant, Malcolm, and Derek White. What screams size? What's going to stop Bam Adebayo from having another game with 15 rebounds? The points are easy for him. There's nothing stopping him, and Robert Williams is playing 15 minutes less than he is. You still do need to get offense out of Al Horford. I don't care what you say. I mean, granted, he shows defensive presence when needed, but what happens when the offense isn't there and the defense isn't there either? It's twice as bad. And even if Horford goes off for this big game, let's say Horford goes for 22 points, while that would be great and helpful and maybe close to a win, what if Bam Adebayo goes for 40? And it comes down to 3 possessions over the course of 2 minutes, and Jimmy Butler's still in the game. 617-779-7937. Text line 37937. Look, I wish I could be a little more professional about how I'm approaching this, but it's just kind of like ask a behavioral scientist who might be a sports fan. And just, if you have a friend that works in psychology or something like that, and say, you know what do you see out there? I would not be shocked if they told you, I see a lack of command. I see a lack of who is the leadership and who does the listening. I mean, does it make sense to you to have timeouts and not use them towards the end of the game? Does it not make sense that you're not running plays directly through your superstar? I mean, because here's the crazy thing about when you double team somebody. If they're going to do it at the 5-minute mark, you know they're going to do it at the 3-minute mark, the 2-minute mark, so you might as well start doing it earlier in terms of preparing for that, see who can get hot. 617-779-7937, text line 37937. KJ, WEEI. Let's go to David in the car, man. David, help me out because I'm trying to figure out, is it what I'm seeing or is it what other people see?
What you're seeing, you're absolutely right. And I'm going to tell you right now, is I don't want to say this, but it happened with the Bruins, and I called it. And I just had this feeling the way they were playing, and I called Game 7 for them to lose on overtime, and they did. And I am calling it the Celtics going to get swept in this series.
Ooh.
The fact that you lose 2 games at home. Yesterday, you were up 12 points before half.
Yeah.
You were up in the fourth quarter. And you allow, on your home court, you allow a team to come back. And don't get me wrong, the Heat is not a shabby team. I think they're a lot better than people give them credit. You've got a young team, energetic, and you have a very experienced coaching staff. But the fact that you lose 2 games straight at home, and the Heat has not lost at home, for anybody to think, and I'm a huge Celtics fan, and I really want to believe that they can go down there and win, but you have to be realistic. For us to think that they can go down there and take 2 games, it's not going to happen. It ain't going to happen.
Yeah, thanks for the call, David. Yeah, here's a better way of kind of framing it. Can Joe Mazzulla and the Boston Celtics outcoach and outplay Eric Spoelstra and the Miami Heat 4 out of the next 5 games? Huh? 37937, text line Stiz. Give me a couple.
Yeah, there's a couple good ones coming in. You know, when you were talking about other teams that were down 2-0 and rallied up, a few texts came through saying, listen, this team isn't the Chicago Bulls, and Tatum is just not Michael Jordan.
He's not.
You know. Hey, KJ, great show, weighing in on the Celtics. I just don't trust the Celtics coaching or the players knowing their roles and disappearing despite being he doesn't trust the team, doesn't trust the coaching. Management's not going to be very happy when they lose to an 8 seed. And then actually someone else, because a lot of people have been saying the 8 seed thing, and someone said, can we stop acting like the Miami Heat are an 8 Cinderella seed? They were literally the number 1 seed a year ago, and they lost 1 player. It's the same thing with the Florida Panthers.
Yeah, exactly right. Like, how ironic that here you have the Panthers in NHL. I'm going to cross-pollinate my cereal here. The 8 seed, you're like, oh, but when I looked at that series with the Bruins, I was like, well, they were the 2 seed last year. They just fell apart. They could figure it out. That's why I wasn't so mad at the Bruins. I said, thank you for the season. But, I understood why they might have lost that series. And it's the same situation, the same building, the same cities, the same seeds virtually. The Celtics should have been 1. They just kind of let that go. But, yeah, I don't know what is going on that people feel like, and I don't mean the fans, I mean just in terms of what we're seeing on the court. There's something that's not connecting, right? Despite what people think of M.A. in a situation where they don't know the facts too, some of us do, M.A. would make sure, you remember last year, M.A. in his interviews would call out situations about players who you knew exactly who he was talking about. Most of the stuff you're hearing is either, well, Joe's going to take this stuff and Joe's our guy. And it's almost kind of like, I don't know, Stiz. There was this one girl I dated. I have to share this story. I was in Atlanta. My wife is, these stories have kind of been redacted. And I really thought she was going to be the one, like, you really like somebody if you give them premier passes to The Devil Loves Prada. You really like them.
Wow, you might as well be engaged.
No, I didn't want to go see that stupid movie, but I gave her those tickets. But as we talked and talked and talked, I noticed that she never called herself father or dad. She always said the guy's first name. And I said, well, I'm thinking to myself, like, well, what's the level of respect that you have for your father if you feel like you just call him by his name? You just be like, Steve. I'm like, I started to think that, like, Steve is not really her father, but Steve is the other dude she's saying. Because there's no way you would never say my father or pops or dad. You would never just keep saying his first name. It seems weird. And it just seems like it's not Coach Mazzulla, it's Joe to the players. Speaking of Joe, 617-779-7937. Let's go to Joe in the car about Joe Mazzulla. Joe, thanks for calling WEEI. You're on the air.
Thanks for taking my call. Let me tell you, son. Joe Mazzulla, this guy, he's got to go, man. I was defending the guy in the beginning, The guy was put on there without unexpectedly and blah, blah. But this guy doesn't know what a timeout is. This guy doesn't know how to get his team, up and running. This guy doesn't know how to call plays. I mean, it's almost like, okay, guys, go out there and just go shoot threes. Go shoot threes. Forget about everything else. Go shoot the three ball. Forget about defense. Forget about it. Go ahead and keep turning the ball over. Go ahead, turn it to the other team. This guy Mazzulla, I gotta tell you something. This guy Mazzulla, the stage is too big for this guy Mazzulla. This guy Mazzulla, he's gotta go. And why did Wick take the interim coach off this guy? Why did he wait? Why didn't he wait till the end of the year? You know why he didn't wait? You want to know why he didn't wait? Because up until the All-Star break, everybody was ready to give this guy Coach of the Year. You had Rockets Sixth Man of the Year. But this guy Mazzulla got so comfortable, he forgot how to coach. He just got to know how to coach. He got to know how to coach. Mazzulla, you don't know how to coach. We're over two because of you. Mazzulla, you drive me crazy. I can't stand this guy. I'm nothing personal with the guy. I want the best for the guy, but this guy's got to go. I can't watch this guy. Marcus Smart tells him what to do. Marcus Smart tells him who goes in, who goes out. Marcus Smart, he's the coach. Marcus Smart, that's another jabroni. That guy should be sitting down. Marcus Smart, he should be sitting down. He shouldn't be playing. My blood pressure right now, and I just got to be.
Yes, it's in the 200s right now, Joe.
I can't hear this team. I can't watch. I'm sick. I've been sick all day. I gotta go.
Joe, thanks for the call.
Was that Andrew Dice Clay?
Well, you know what? First, I have to say that goes down as one of my classics. It's going to be on a classic reel. And two, it feels like Joe the caller probably knows where you don't necessarily, quote, want to build in the seaport, that because he's angry. You know what I mean? Don't say you know what I mean, Stiz, but if you know what I mean. Like, oh, no, you don't want to dig there. It's tough to see. I mean, you think about the comments that Marcus Smart made last week about Joe Mazzulla saying, well, he's just going to have to take these. This is what it is. And I just don't know what is on the brain. I know what's not on the brain. We'll get to that next. KJ, WEEI, your call, 617-779-7937, text line 37937, still to come.